important point that I tell people all the time. You gotta, they'll give you a lot more reach.
Did just clarify with ChatGPT where I'm based, and it gave me the top 5 what I thought was the highly rated car accident lawyers. And out of that 5, I only know one of them. I wonder what the algorithm is that's trying to figure out based on what that is.
And it's interesting too, and I've seen it, sometimes ChatGPT will actually source it depending on the prompt. Google, both Bard and Gemini, well, I guess those are one and the same now, and the SGE test stuff, they will also source stuff. And so that's what I'm always curious about, because again, my SEO hat is, well, where is the machine pulling the data from? Because that's where I want to be.
Exactly. And just have to know where the game is to be able to play that game. And also, as we're talking about, I realized that we're trying to figure out, but Google has a lot bigger reason to figure it out. You know, they have $1.66 trillion reasons to kind of figure out how they should deal with this. And as long as we're kind of doing what Google wants and doing what Facebook wants, then I'm sure the corporations will be able to figure it out for us.
Right. And and I think that's a really, really important point that I tell people all the time. You got to understand the platform's incentive, right? So, and we talk about this with Google Ads all the time, not only in the context of like SGE and stuff, but Google has automated recommendations. They're coming up with automated content creation for ads, like AI-driven content creation. Google has one incentive. They'll say, we want to organize the world's information and supply users with the answers to their questions. Google wants you to click ads. Let's just face it. That's where they make their money. LinkedIn, we talk about the LinkedIn algorithm. LinkedIn wants you to stay on LinkedIn. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook. They don't want you to leave the platform. And so if you remember that as you're creating content, as you're running ads, remember the incentives of the platform. That should help inform your strategy. I'll give you just a short kind of silly example, but like LinkedIn, if you post native videos on LinkedIn and native images versus like a link to your own site, like we've been doing since social media started, they'll give you a lot more reach than they will if you put a link in. And so, because they want you to stay on platform and, they want engagement. So we see the same thing in search, and AJ Cohn just had a great thing on his post. Is called Good Enough, but short version is that, yeah, guess what? Links in search results that get clicked, that get engaged with at a higher rate than other ones tend to do better, because that's a signal Google's using to think about whether or not the users are happy. And so keeping people on platform, selling ads, those should all be part of like in the back of your head as you're doing stuff online.
How do you stay on top of all the trends and news and updates that's going on with marketing Google?
Man, I don't know if I do. I try. It's hard. And, I'm very much like go to the horse's mouth. So I've got a feed reader set up for all of like the major platform blogs and that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing that I think too, and even I always say, people are always like, why do you say that? But because again, against my own interest, but don't take my word for it. Don't take Google's word for it. Go test and experiment with your own stuff. And people can't express that, how important that is, because what works for someone might not work for you for a variety of reasons. What one expert like me would sit here and, quote unquote expert might say might not work for you for a bunch of different reasons. And so test your own data, constantly be experimenting. But again, keep in the back of your head, what's the platform's incentive? Why are they making these decisions to surface certain content? I think if you do that, you're 80% of the way there.
Do you follow any YouTube channels?
I've been slow on YouTube. I've been much more of I'll tell you recently, it's funny too, because I was kind of slow on TikTok. But the thing about all this stuff online is like, it's very hard to vet. And so I tend to just like, I'll see something come into my feed and I'll go, maybe I'll try and experiment something in like a test case, but I'm not a huge information consumer in that way. I mean, there's a couple authors, like I follow AJ Cohn's a big author. I follow some of the HubSpot stuff. There are a couple of other, like Ross Hudgens at Siege Media is somebody I follow for content. There are some industry folks that I tend to follow, but honestly, I know people aren't going to like to hear this. I know people are not very happy with Elon Musk, but most of my social media usage has really been Twitter. That's probably my most heavy usage. Recently, I've been on LinkedIn because I think it does have the professional intent, and we've had a lot of success, because again, my audience is lawyers, and there's tend to be a lot more lawyers there than on other social platforms. But I would encourage people to use YouTube. Again, I think as we go into this SGE world, it's likely that, I always remind people, Google owns YouTube. YouTube's the second largest search engine to Google. And I think we're going to see a lot more YouTube video content surface in search results. And so I'd be all over YouTube and all over TikTok. And I know there are issues with TikTok too, but it's madness when you, again, I was slow to adopt. I'll post a video on TikTok, same video, same tagging on Instagram, same on LinkedIn, same on, another platform. TikTok will take off out of nowhere. Now, again, are all those real people? I have no idea. But in terms of views and impressions and reach and comments, TikTok, it's craziness. To be the same thing. So if you run tests on different platforms, I think you'll see, and again, at the end of the day too, the other thing I tell people is people are like, well, like, I don't care about reach. I don't care about follower counts. I really don't care about that stuff. Show me the business metrics behind it. Like what is the value here? Is this actually turning into, whatever your business model is? If you're a lawyer and you're generating fees, are people saying like, hey, I watch you on TikTok? Great. That's a qualitative data point for attribution for TikTok. But if they're not, if it's all like, anyway, this is a whole great conversation too on attribution, because the thing that lawyers forget and marketing people like me have trained them is that, everybody's on last touch direct response. And so they're all like looking at their analytics and like, hey, can I see, click, call, hire, and then, my Google ads has got a return on investment, but people don't necessarily hire you that way, right? It's a referral. If someone saw you on the one thing, then they saw you on another thing, they finally actually, and so all of this quote unquote dark social stuff does make a big difference. And that's another person too, I would say, Refine Labs and Chris Walker, his stuff's really, really good if you're into that kind of like understanding attribution and dark social.